Welcome to everyone, and thank you for joining us from around the world. We are Nicole, Hardt and Anjana, founders and creative directors of the project Made In, a project that is examining the situation and future of textile handcrafts in India and Germany. At a time when everyone is talking about virtual collections and fashion in the metaverse, when the common wisdom seems to be to buy less and to stop making new things, it seems almost counterintuitive to talk about the handmade, about the principles of making, the future of handcrafts, and the beauty of exquisite and handmade textiles. However, fabric, the material that real life fashion and textile craft is made of, is the very fiber that connects us all as human beings. Textiles have defined, shaped, and changed the world we live in. Every day, textiles continue to offer us warmth, protection, and comfort, but they also serve as markers to express belonging. They create a sense of identity. We must never forget that. Our project, Made In, is based on this premise. It is common knowledge. The fashion industry indeed needs to change. The frantic trajectory of fashion seasons, the rules of efficiency and pricing harm the planet and us. In awareness of this, trends of ethical consumption and slow fashion have been moving us somewhat in the right direction. We must consume more mindfully and understand the consequences of production processes. We must transform our understanding of quality and value. This might be a decisive moment for textile handcraft to recapture the attention of a wider audience. Our goal with the project Made In is to document the reality of textile handcraft today in India and Germany, and to outline a vision for the future of handcraft in the fashion world. For we believe that crafts have always had the potential to capture the new and the old, and to integrate tradition and excellence with the demands of our time. Today, we are joined by an exciting panel of wonderful women, all experts on textile handcraft in their own right, and looking at crafts from different angles in India and Germany. From India, we have Laila Tyabji, craft activist, designer, writer, and founder of the Indian craft NGO DASTKAR. Recipient of prestigious awards like the Padma Shri in 2012 by the Indian government and the Aid to Artisans Preservation of Craft Award in New York. But most of all, for the last 40 years, she has been and is one of the leading voices in India and internationally to focus on the strengths and challenges of India's rich craft sector. Hello, Laila.
Hello.
And we have Rina Singh, the founder and designer of the fashion brand Eka, which she started in 2011. Trained in India as well as in the UK and Italy, she has developed her own visual language and contemporary Indian fashion design. She was the finalist from India for the prestigious Woolmark International Prize 2016. She was awarded the Vogue Power List Minimalist Designer of the Year 2019 and recently was the first Indian designer to do a collaboration with the brand Uniqlo. Hello, Rina.
Hello. Happy to be here.
From Germany, we want to welcome Friederike von Wedel-Parlow. Friederike is designer and founder of the Beneficial Design Institute, expert on circular fashion systems, an educator as professor for sustainable design strategy at AMD.Berlin, and a true believer of beauty and quality as drivers of sustainable change. Friederike gained a lot of experience doing her circular product design collaborations with quite a few big companies such like Manufactum. Welcome, Friederike.
So nice to be here. Thank you.
And then we have also from Berlin, Evelyn Sitter. Evelyn is a textile artist and designer. In her practice, she intertwines questions about gender identities and hybrid craft technologies. develops experimental alternatives of showing and staging fashion. Her work was showcased at the recent 100 Years of Bauhaus exhibition in Berlin in a textile installation. In the design field, Evelyn developed hand-woven fabrics for fashion companies like Chanel, for example. She also works as an artistic associate at the University of Arts in Berlin. Welcome.
Thanks, so happy to be here.
Yeah, so to start, we would like to speak on the relationship between fashion and handcraft. In times of great trauma, like our current time, often there are moments of great creativity which are produced as we attempt to process what we've been through and what we're going through. One way to express that is fashion. After periods of extremes like the pandemic or the ongoing war, dress and beauty are markers to signal new beginnings. What is the relevance and importance of handcraft and fashion in our challenging times from your point of view? Maybe can I ask Laila G to start?
Well, I'm perhaps the wrong person to start this because I'm not really in fashion. I'm very much in handcraft and have been working for many, many years in this field. But I think as a sort of person working in the craft sector in India, I've always been a little wary of fashion because, of course, it's an opportunity, it's an exciting activity, it's creative, it's changing, and it gives employment. But until very recently, it's been so fluctuating and transitory. It's been so fast with season after season sort of following each other. And craft is a slow process. Handcraft takes time. And so by the time you've completed something, it's time to move on to the next. Difficult for craftspeople to keep pace. And that's why perhaps craftspeople have always been rather employed by fashion designers rather than being active protagonists in the fashion industry. But I do feel a sense of great excitement now because I think these 2 years of pandemic, though they've been quite terrible, have also given everybody time to introspect and think. And it's very encouraging to hear voices from the fashion industry internationally, both in Europe and in America, pondering over this, cyclic behavior, this rather frantic desire for change, and that whether we can't have something slower, more meaningful. And I think when you talk slower, more meaningful, more one of a kind rather than mass production, automatically you think of handcraft. And automatically, when you think of handcraft, you think of India, which has such millions of practitioners and been home to international designers coming and finding people to work with them. So I think it's an opportunity, and I'm delighted about it because I think we should, once this pandemic recedes, see new beginnings.
Yeah, thank you, Laila. Friederike, how about your point on this?
Yeah, well, I think fashion and craft have always been completely intertwined and moved together forward. And I think this is a connection that we've been losing over the past 50 years, I guess, of industrialization, of fast fashioning forward our fashion systems. But I really see the potential of crafts to actually recrafting fashion to give the people what they actually really want, really authentic, meaningful design pieces that they can identify with, stories that come just from the origin of the making process, of the supply chain, of the people making it, and not a commercialized, advertised fashion with no meaning. So I think this, recrafting fashion, I think, is where the intertwine is part.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no, thank you. I think that's very interesting. And I guess maybe Rina, if you could, because you are a fashion designer working with craft in India, maybe you could give your point of view to that.
Yeah, so I also agree. I think that fashion and craft, thinking of how one would really look at fashion. So fashion has really different kind of, it could be the order of the day, it could be like trend driven, or it could also be slow luxury, which could be absolutely immersed in craft. And from India, if anybody is really looking at where we come from and what we do and what our legacy is, there is no way we can really stand anywhere if we are not talking about our craft sector or our craftspeople, or we don't have an authentic story to speak if we don't have if we don't carry forward the legacy of craft. So I personally feel that there is a lot that we definitely borrow as inspiration from craft. We really take it forward in terms of deriving meaning from it and adding a lot more value to it, making it more relevant, more appreciable, and more accepting. I feel that we really need to work hand in hand, develop newer skill sets that with a newer artistic language, I feel, because design and how we look at beauty really changes. It's not the same. You will not look at beauty in the same way that you would look at it 10 years ago, another 20 years ago. It changes. So fashion adds meaning. It's not that it's absolutely meaningless. And definitely as a designer that's based out of India and that's working with the craft people and the textile crafts of India, I derive a lot of meaning in the world where I am from where I come from. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Evelyn.
As a fashion designer, also being a craftswoman and a designer, I also have this vision of fashion, which I really also appreciate and love, but also in times of wars and crisis, I really also question my field a lot, and I really wonder what my profession also really can provide, because the thing that I understand for the moment now is that I'm living in a very privileged position, that I have a part of paying donations, registering my house to somebody where I can host somebody, and helping with a few things. I'm also really helpless. I feel really helpless, and also in those times, I really doubt what fashion can also help and bring. The thing that I really believe in, that we also learn from crisis, that power really has to be divided. It cannot be that only one person or a kind of a minority has the power on so many people. So I think this is really important also in times of crisis, to learn that power has to be divided by several hierarchies in capitalistic structures are really toxic also, and we have to, especially in fashion education, teach students to work together, to work in collaborations, to learn and listen to each other. And that's what my mindset is for the moment also in fashion education.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Anjana.
I saw today a picture of an artist in Ukraine sort of doing graffiti on an abandoned tank, and I thought that was like really an interesting take on creativity in times of absolute horror. And so what you're saying, I think that we have to think where we are in this time is very relevant, Evelyn. So. But you also mentioned that we have to work together, and I think I would like to bring the talk a little bit and the discussion a little bit on the collaboration between artisans and designers, because that, as was said by all of you also, that how fashion and craft have somehow a little bit of a divide, and there is not the eye level is really not always met where artisans' competence and knowledge is concerned. Someone said, Michael Kuipers in this film, The Future is Handmade, said that making something beautiful is an expression of knowledge. And I feel that, that knowledge that the crafts people, the artisans have, is really not seen at all. And what is our way of trying to bring that out in the future? How can we make that something where collaboration and collaborative efforts are coming more to the forefront? maybe Rina, because you are working on this. Also, could you?
What I feel is that, Anjana, it's not about being center stage or not, really. It's not about one person being center stage. So if you're talking about a craft, say something like block printing, we use it extensively in India. And of course, so the block printing technique is used across India in different kind of clusters with different sort of languages, with different kind of color, motif, and, different techniques. Really intrinsic and extremely, extremely dexterous, I would say. To imagine that exactly the same kind of craft will be understood by everybody in the world, will be worn like that, will be brought like that, and we will be able to give the craftsperson or the artist on the center stage to say that they are the designer, they, on merit, that they have the skill set, that they can do this by hand. I really don't think so. That's important, to be honest, I really don't think so. Well, I'm not going to say that I'm not privileged to be sitting in a place where I have a label of my own. But likewise, I would say that the person who's creating and making the blocks with me, and we work in sort of a partnership, I would say that there is no way that I'm not going to acknowledge that backwards and say that I sit and make the blocks myself. Whether I employ them or I commission them or I work in partnership with them, in any case, the stamp is not my name either. So that's why my label is not called anywhere, it's not my name, it's called ECA, which means that it's a collaboration, it's unity, it's bringing together of different people with different skill sets, with different ideas of how to be able to express themselves with beauty, with craft, with scales that are really vanishing in our times. And all these people who are even sitting and embroidering or making the blocks or even printing or adding colors to something that I have a vision for, I think all of us come together and create something. And that's why I call it ECA. So I feel it's not really about a person getting the onus, it's about the craft getting the onus. And anyhow, if it is it's selling on merit. And if it's going forward, if it's visible, and if the young kids are going to look at it and feel that this is what I want to wear, I think that's a step forward. If it really only stays in the textbook or in the libraries, or it's just a reference point for somebody like me to look at and develop from, I don't think we really succeed in the long term, to be honest, Anjana. We have to be practical, we have to be business oriented, not just for myself, taking the chain backwards to the last level, to the person who's actually cutting the wood to make the blocks, who's making the drawings, who's really carving the block, to somebody who's printing it, who's standing with me and doing the color combination. I think this entire chain has to survive on merit. And that merit can only be be able to get to newer people who can appreciate the beauty of how it is made, So getting a business sense to it is important, making it more visible is important, making it more contemporary and outwardly, be visible to the entire world is also important. And then I think once we have that thing going, when the tradition is alive, I pick it. The children after me, they pick it and they still want to go back to block printing on merit, not just because they feel, okay, this is something that we need to carry forward, on merit, because it's something that that kind of beauty cannot be achieved by a digital print or a screen print or something. That merit has to survive, and that can only come when we bring value to it, when we add more dimension to it, and that will be a partnership, Anjana. Nobody will be able to, neither the block maker or the printer, they will not be able to do it on their own.
I completely agree what you're saying. I think you're the ideal example for your work and what you're doing. But I think we're also facing an industry which is working at the moment very, very differently. During our project that we were working on for the past years, we really realized that craft in Germany is nearly not existing anymore. So we couldn't find any designer working with craft. The knowledge was gone. No, and I think really what you were saying, to showcase the beauty of craft, the block making, and from the very first step, I think this is also a key to bring it back to life.
Yeah, I think maybe Laila ji, if you can also speak. I know that you have always said that the craft people, because their status in society often is not seen as with the honor they deserve.
I think the point is, I absolutely agree with Rina that it really doesn't matter whose name is on the label, except that unfortunately nowadays it does matter. I mean, that is, the brand is important. And I think that you can't forget that craft is an economic activity. It's a cultural activity, but it's also an economic and social activity. And just as all of us, I think, work for satisfaction, for creative fulfillment, but there still has to be an economic return. And I think that it's not an even playing field. The craftsperson who makes the block is certainly not uh, regarded as a skilled professional in the way that the designer who uses him does. And I think that's the reason that there is an exodus in the crafts field. They feel that they, um, even if they're paid quite well, which in many cases they're not, they are not regarded as skilled professionals. They don't get the social status of a professional. I often say that, to lay the warp of an ikat, double ikat sari is much, much more complex, say, than doing software programming. But in Indian society, at least in India today, the respect that someone who works in the computer industry, even at a quite low level, is much more. They're recognized as much greater things, while craft is still regarded as a slightly primitive thing which neoliterates in rural India do. And for me, that's the issue. Craft was always a collective activity in India, so I don't think signatures and their names and things matter very much. It's not a concept that really exists among the crafts community. But the feeling that if you're a team of people, there should be equal value to the different components. And at the moment, I don't think that's true, except in a very few sort of really very sensitive design houses. That doesn't happen, and it certainly doesn't happen when international designers come and work in India with Indian craftspeople, because very often they don't even want to disclose where they're getting their things made, because that's again part of their existence, their competitiveness, their whatever. So it's really, I think there is a lot of work to be done, but uh, more than that, I feel that, I mean, to move away from the economics of it and the social aspects of it, is the fact that uh, at one time, fashion, I mean, for centuries, fashion was a way of expressing your own identity. You might have followed a trend, a king or a queen set a fashion or whatever. But by and large, people wore clothes, they wore colors, they wore styles which express themselves. I think in this really very fast moving fashion industry, and then the mass production garment industry, that has been completely lost. Textiles tell stories, clothes tell stories. They tell where you're from, what you're like as a person, which part of India you come from, what kind of things you like. Every motive has a story and a history. Today, when you look at the chain stores across the world, they're all the same brands, the same malls are full of the same clothes. And those clothes which you see one day are not going to be there maybe a month or so later. And people sort of follow these things. I mean, to me, it's really deeply disturbing that a group of people somewhere sitting in New York or wherever decide the colors that are fashionable, and that people then follow that and say, oh, the color of this season, this is, I think, what is periwinkle blue or something this season. And that, uh, you know, thousands and millions of people across the world, young people, feel that, okay, then that's the color, whether it suits them or not, whether it's something that they need or not. And I feel that that's where India can really change things around, because we still have the capacity to make clothes for each and every person that look different. Because in handcraft, it doesn't cost more to change color, to change a motive, to do a different weave. It's not like the economics of mass production where you have to produce thousands of meters of a certain design in order for it to be commercially viable. And therefore, the marketing pressure to say that this is what you have to buy now. Uh, so I think that in these 2 years where people have started to think about this and say, do we all want to look the same? Do we all need to change our clothes every 3 months or so in response to some fashion pundit? I think this is the time for us really to express this again and say, you're missing out something absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, I think that is a really important point. I mean, Friederike, I know that you are looking at a similar topic in the sense that, you know, you're looking at different ways of generative marketing and production. Maybe you have something to say to that?
Yeah, it was just so very beautiful to listen to the two of you of the experience from the Indian perspectives, and I totally agree with what you just have been saying in regard to that we need to get back to the real needs and to the real expression of our identities, and that's maybe one motivation why designers also started to exploit the beauty of crafts and just used, and I would even say misused, the craft and the beauty of it, or digitalize it in a way, kind of, or mass produce it in a way just to give some kind of authenticity to fast fashion products, but by kind of, yeah, using this kind of richness of cultures or indigenous designs and crafts, just with the intention to give more stories or to get closer to real stories, but by completely misunderstanding how to appreciate the intellectual property of and the ownership of these designs, of these beautiful techniques, and to neither kind of appreciate it, nor communicate it, nor give the real value, financial value, back to the people that originally created and make it. So I think that here is a real kind of happened, a real big exploitation of design, which also is a challenge now to get back to getting designers understand to culturally respect that. And I'm so happy that there are these initiatives like the Cultural Intellectual Property Initiative by Monica Moisin and others that really support this the strategy to get everybody understand a proper way to work with each other and to collaborate. And I think a lot of cases are not so ideal as in your world of the design that you were just kind of telling. So I think there's a lot of unlearning and new learning, or getting back to originally working together. And in a funny way, I think here also technology might be really a help to make these processes really transparent. And I think as your platform and website where one can see and really celebrate the beauty of it and know and understand how it's made and how these processes are, it's really important to make the people and the ones that are wearing it understand how intensive these processes are, what the beauty and the difference of each kind of single crafts person or group or community is, and to make us really learn where it's coming from, who are the original groups and communities making it, and how the original colors are, and to kind of really have the true stories in it. So there's also in kind of sustainable approach of really following up the supply chain as one of the big tasks to understand what are we doing here. I think connected with crafts and technologies for transparency, I really see a big chance to make a change on a bigger scale using crafts in the right way.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
innovation,
I think
it's a big topic. Sorry, Nicole.
Yeah, I think that's a super big important topic, but I would like to hear Evelyn's point of view, because she's a designer and textile designer, and she's working on weaving a lot, weaving fabrics by herself, but she's moving into the art scene with her products, because I think the German market completely works differently than the Indian market, because it's not a vibrant scene, and we don't get the people to pay that much for clothing that are handmade anymore. And I think that's a chance to get the valuation for the product. How do you see this, Evelyn?
Yeah, it's such a complicated issue because I'm trained as a fashion designer. I was always more interested in the textile production in it because, I don't know, for me myself, but also now when I teach with students, I feel that there's a sovereignty that you get through producing your own textiles and through crafts, because the making of the craft gives you such a different timing, and the pace is just the pace that you get through the material. And this defines your whole process, and I think this knowledge that you get there in this moment is so important also for all the processes, and it has such a big value also for the students, especially in our digital times where they are so much also struggling with concentration. Sometimes I have the feeling that even an hour being on their craft is sometimes really difficult. But to more answer your question, I feel very much in Germany we have very strong hierarchies which are dated back to Renaissance in the end, also like dividing really arts from the craft, from the design, and also not letting in the one discipline to the other. So I'm sometimes struggling also, like when I apply for a project, then it's very particularly also written only for designers only or for artists only. So I feel that the hierarchies in Germany are really, really strong, and also sometimes when I speak with also curators, galleries, they are really lived, and I think this is really problematic. In my practice I don't have them. I also like to use the strategies, for example, from fashion collection making, to using them for my pieces, which everybody reads them in a different way, but which can be also then read as art pieces. Sometimes it's also linked to collection making, and I think this is really a challenge in Germany to get rid of those hierarchies also there in those disciplines, and to let voices in which are also coming from the crafts, and not saying like, okay, this is an artisan now and that's not an artist. It's really, really frustrating also sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is something that you're raising a very important point that also somehow cycles back to what both Laila and Rina were saying, that I mean, the craft person is not being seen, and I mean, it's not being heard as an equal. And I think that is really what has to change for crafts to have a future and to be able to survive in that way, you know. So I think, I mean, innovation of the status and the hierarchy between art, design, and craft is really crucial for survival there.
Yeah, it's a lack on both sides. No, I think in Germany it's the lack of craft, no, of craft knowledge, of craft being present, and in India we need really design competence. We need to see it, because in Europe it's not that well known. No, India is for us more still a production country, so we know that there's a lot of craft, but not the design scene. No, I think both sides we need to develop further.
Yeah, I think maybe Rina. Sorry.
Sorry. I'm saying in the last sort of 100 years, I think the Indian craftsperson became really pushed down into becoming just a skilled practitioner rather than an artist. Traditionally in India, there was no differentiation between art and craft, and the most wonderful examples of Indian traditional art were never signed, and they were done as a group activity. But this changed a lot. I think now a very exciting development is the emergence of sort of design schools for artisans in Kutch and in Kashmir and in Madhya Pradesh. And that has really created a new generation of young craftspeople who have learned the skills of the urban world of marketing, of visual merchandising, of the design vocabulary, which used to always rather intimidate them. So there's a whole new generation of young Indian craftspeople coming up who I think have extraordinary potential, and I think we're going to see some very exciting things.
And maybe just to add here on this educational aspect, in my program where I'm teaching sustainability in fashion with students also from all over the world, I can see really the deep interest of students to really understand how collaboration and really working with crafts, with on an eye-to-eye level, how much this is also a deep felt need of these students to really learn how this could be practiced. So I think this can be really a kind of eventually also through these new generations, we can also see to a kind of a positive future how this might change the way we work together, because the respect for other cultures, for kind of being kind of taking a fair and respectful role is something that is super important for the young generation. Or this has been a deep discussion over the past terms in the courses that I teach. And so listening from your perspective and seeing my students, I get quite positive.
Yeah, I mean, we believe that education is the key, no, for craft to survive. And but there's also not the education at school. I think also the consumer education and bring knowledge to the consumer is very important for an understanding about the processes. Where do you see the chance to implement this in the whole fashion industry? Maybe Rina, because you're a designer working in this
No, I was
industry.
actually, yeah, I was listening to Laila ji, and I was listening to Friederike and also Evelyn and everybody. And I think it's really interesting to have all the points of view in one discussion where we can all really bring forward where we come from and how we look at a certain, you know, say an issue. So I would say that for me as a designer, I feel that for me to put my foot in the door in the international industry and say that I am a designer and a brand that's made in India, and I am a maker. And yes, I use age-old techniques and textiles that are my legacy from the country. And yet I am a brand, I am a maker myself. So far as now, I think for a lot many years that Laila ji is talking about that, years ago, centuries ago, perhaps the craftspeople, the artisans were the designers. They were celebrated. Literally, we knew that in this village there is this karigar, and we would go looking for. Even I did actually in my college days. We knew that there is this person who is the best kind of a block maker or a ajrak printer, and we would go by his name, take the bus, go to the village, step off the bus, ask people around that where is this household, and they would just point a finger and say, go there. So now I'm talking, say, 25 years ago. Now, 25 years later, do I think this is going to carry forward if we do not visually excite the newer audience that are getting stimulated and excited by the second every day? We are living in a different world. We have to be very accepting of that. There is no going back. As much as we really like, I want to talk about these stories with all my heart to my children and the people that I work with, the new newcomers in the industry, I want to talk with all my heart, but the truth is there's no going back to a world which is going to connect like that. We are an Insta world today. The references, the stimulations, the inspirations are all out there, whether or not we want them. It's right in front of you, when you don't even want to look at certain things. So many times it's almost like you're thinking about it and it appears on your screen and you feel like, what's going on? Where are we living? What is this world going to be? The only thing is that we can't go back. But what we are moving towards is what we can define. Now, this is a very small segment of people that is still looking at craft to enrich our lives. And there's no competition between the bigger world that decides the trends and who's going to wear what kind of a ball gown to what kind of a premiere or a fashion event or whatever. I'm another community. I want a place for myself in that community, and I want that community to be heard, and I want that community to be respected. And I think that entire community is one, whether that comes from Japan, from India, from Korea, from Germany, everywhere. Craft, really, how we look at it in terms of expression, or I think the design identity could be different. But in terms of expression, we all come from the same space. We all value the same, we value the same kind of sustainable design thinking, the ideology that looks backwards in terms of its legacy to create, but wants to leap ahead to really catch up with the changing times. It's not about survival. It's really about being that passionate about that beauty, being that aggressive, passionate, a dreamer, a storyteller that you want the whole world, if they are interested, or at least the people who want to hear the story, you want to be in front of them. And that I feel very, very strongly after years of successes and failures, it is a visual language. I cannot sell a product on merit if I cannot have the audience look at it and say, wow, what is this? And that's a second of an impression, whether it is Instagram or it is outside somewhere, it's garment hanging in the store or a piece that I look at and, anywhere, somebody wearing it on the street and just walking past them and turning around to look at them. It's not clothing, it's still art for somebody like who wants to look at it like that, isn't it? So I personally feel that visual language is important as much as, we want to go back and think about the making as the crux of it. I feel to keep up with the changing world in terms of how we are inspiring people and how we are making it look, how we are making them look at it, whether or not they go to museums, they should see it on the streets, they should see it on Instagram, they should see designers on the catwalks with those kind of clothes, and then they want to know the story about it. So, of course, if it is a tweak of color, I'm that craftsperson, I'm that maker. I want my story on the ramp, and I want people to say, where does she live? Where is her studio? Yes, of course, I took the legacy from somebody who's in the village, but of course, I'm a part of them and they're a part of me. This is the kind of story that I want to believe in. I very strongly feel this is the way forward. The more people who look at it, because beauty is appreciated by in their own way, it's subjective, of course, but the people who appreciate beauty in those nuances should be attracted to it and should want to know the story, whether it is from Japan or India or anywhere else in the world. So yeah, I feel that putting my foot in the door in the international or the market, which is now becoming one, literally, it's just becoming like you're literally on the phone. I want to put my foot in the door and I want to say, I'm that craftsperson and I'm the maker and this is my story. And these are the people I come with. So, and then I want them to be interested in everything else.
Well, if I may, I think that what is most exciting for me today is that world has changed. And that change is changing the craftspeople as well as the consumer. In fact, perhaps craftspeople are changing quite as fast. And that world that Rina talked about, the Instagram, the thing, that is now accessible. That has been the most amazing development of the last 15, 20 years, is that today every craftsperson has a smartphone and they are on Pinterest, they are on Instagram, they're looking at these images. And for years, for generations actually, they were stifled by the fact that they had the skill, but their skill was being interpreted for them by the middleman. and very often not a very sensitive person, a person who didn't understand the craft, who wanted volume, who wanted a low price. And so they completely lost. And I've worked in this field now for 50 years. When I started working with craftspeople, one of the things that depressed me most was that though they had the manual skill, they had lost that confidence and creativity. They were allowing themselves to just become a skilled pair of hands, where other people were telling them that you have to make this, you have to make it in so many multiples of whatever, and this is the price that you're going to get for it. Today, when craftspeople are looking at all these images, they're seeing the shows, they're looking at the clothes, they're looking at designs, they suddenly have realized that this is not a totally alien world. We can also be part of it. And if we can give them the confidence and the economic means to actually realize some of those dreams, which Rina talked about her dreams, and I think that was so true. But they also have dreams. But for a long time, they never thought that this was something that they could even dare to dream. But today, I think one is seeing a new generation of young craftspeople coming out, and they see, that we can be there. It's not so complex. I remember the first time a young artisan in Kutch, uh, was at the Kalarakta School of Design, and he was being told about a mood board. And he said, I've heard designers coming and talking about, mood boards and uh, sort of color spectrums and things like that. And I thought these were such scary words. But now that I've learned about them, it's what we do. We know how to do that. And, it's okay for us to do it. So I am actually quietly confident about the ability of craftspeople today to rise to this new opportunities and things. Where I feel that a lot of work needs to be done is consumer education, as you were saying, because unless the consumer understands the difference between a hand block piece of fabric which has taken 17 different block prints and color impressions, and feels it and sees the kind of the texture and the sort of quality that that printing has and how different it is from digital, they're not going to be able to value it or to be prepared to pay the price for it. So I think we have to do something very strongly in schools and universities and things to say that handcraft is important, not just because it employs millions of hands, but because it gives an extraordinary quality to whatever it is being used to make. And after all, when photography came, art and sculpture didn't disappear. They took on a new avatar, but they have continued side by side quite harmoniously, sometimes in the same galleries. So I don't think we should feel that industry is going to wipe out handcraft. But we can't at the same time just sit on our hands and say, oh, well, time will take its course. We have to be actively engaged in seeing that both go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's why I also think craft and innovation is such an interesting topic, no? Even when you were pointing out with Instagram, craft people can post all their work and that they are reaching out to the world, no? And can show their beauty and craft and make people understand it. But there was one point Friederike and I were talking about, maybe all the movement is going back to local production and local consumption. So we are moving back from this worldwide and fast fashion industry, slowly to this, to back to a local idea, which is not meaning we are going backwards, but we are developing further. But now we have a bigger understanding of the world, how it should be working. And Friederike, maybe you have something to say to the local idea.
Yeah, I mean, I was a bit also inspired by the words before on consumer education, and I think this maybe goes along also with local systems, local fashion systems, that I think looking more into, I don't know how we can call them, user or appreciator, or find a better term, because as long as we are consumers, we're in a kind of capitalist consuming system, and I think this is where we really want to get out. So maybe it's a prosumer or user that gets more involved in local systems. So like it was said before, people were knowing where the handicraft people were sitting, so having this more around the corner, or being more involved in process, being able to see it. And yes, Instagram or these things can be helpful, but also the idea or concept of really sharing there also the whole process of how things are happening, so that celebrating the technique is not only showing the results or celebrating this at the very end point of a fashion product, but celebrating all the steps that are necessary to come there. And with that, all the people that are doing it, all the materials that are in part of it, and also the way how we use it or how we show it, and so on. This, I think this all connects into or ties into more local communities, local systems, in which also it was said before or spoken before about the true needs and of fashion. So also really a good understanding of how can we use fashion today, and how these needs can be also fulfilled. So I think this is really a circle, which is probably really much easier to identify, understand, and respond to in local smaller systems, and from local solutions. And they will probably look very different from each region, and each kind of handicraft and community solutions might look very different, but integrating the ones that wearing it also into the process the same way as the people that are doing it need to be more shown. I think this is all kind of intertwined in a way where we need to come so much closer together to understand the true value, and to live it also and integrate it in our lives. I don't know if I answered your
Evelyn?
question at all, but
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I would like
but
to.
Evelyn, you wanted to say something? You were.
Yeah, I would like to catch up also, I think, those thoughts, because in a way, when you think it through, of course, if you pay everybody the proper wage, and you also provide everybody for a good work environment with nice working hours, so the product that is coming up is kind of a luxury product, and then it's also the question who can pay this luxury product. And I feel that also educating the consumers, I mean, in an ideal world, there would be only products in the market, in our shops, which are produced in a way fairly and have all the values that we are truly believing in. So I would be so happy to have not this weight on a consumer who needs to be educated also, and to understand what kind of things he can buy, but rather having laws to not even allow those products in our market. But I mean, this is, I think, also something which has been talked about for decades now, but they're not coming. It's just, especially also in Germany, in this super liberalistic way of politics working here. So I think, yes, there is a problem. I'm working for the moment also on a new project where I think of how can we also help to distribute those luxury products. Maybe if people buy cars on installments every month, why can't they also buy a product, a fashion product, which is then paid by installments? Why do we also have this, especially also in Germany? I was talking with this interesting person for Wustore. We were working together at University of the Arts together, and he was also saying the German customers are just the worst because they invest in they don't invest in fashion at all. So of course we also have to raise also the value of fashion in it. But I think there are also there are so many different problems also. I lost so many points now.
Yeah, I mean, but
We
Nicole,
have to do this every week, I think.
Good, thanks.
it can be a communication in the end about quality. No, it does not has to be the most fashionable, crazy item. So even if we talk about handcraft, it's healthy, it's fair wages. There's so many points, including in a good quality of a product, and it's just for me that the consumer understands. No, that they know that they know about the textile chain. No, I realize that even when we start with cotton, people don't see this when they buy a T-shirt. No, they don't know about it, and I think we still have to start at the very beginning. And yesterday I pointed out this online retail store Shein, which is becoming very successful, and that's the other end of a nightmare. No, they are selling T-shirts for €2, and I think these things that this still is happening is crazy. But they are targeting a group aged 18 to 28 on TikTok. No, and they have a clear target group, and they are penetrating, and they buy because they don't know. No, they don't know.
I don't find that actually so bad, because I think, I mean, the market is at so many different levels, and we can't force people to spend money on something that they don't think is valuable. To me, the crux of the thing is to change this meaning, this word fashion. It has a connotation today which is quite different from what it used to be. Fashion meant that it was something that had been created, that was innovative, that was interesting, that led a movement.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Today, to be fashionable means to be up to date and, trendy, something contemporary. And there's a feeling that you can only be fashionable if you're wearing something which has been made very, very recently and has been showcased and is part of a kind of a trend, seasonal trend. And I don't think that, even when I was young, which was quite a long time ago, but, when my parents, for instance, discussed somebody as being fashionable, they meant stylish, they meant elegant. They didn't mean that they had rushed out the latest show and or to the latest store and bought something which had been, created and branded as seasonal fashion. And I think that if you can get away from that and go back to the original meaning of what fashion is, which is well made, well styled, creative, interesting, innovative, a lot of these dilemmas will stop. And it will actually be quite peaceful for consumers not to have to constantly reinvent themselves in order to
Yeah,
keep
I
up
think
and
that is
be fashionable. I mean, for
yeah,
instance,
that's a beautiful.
I'm wearing
Sorry.
something aside today, which is a garment that has been around for a couple of 300-400 years, and is actually the fashion industry's nightmare because it never goes out of fashion. But I think I look okay. When I walk down the street, I don't feel drab or old fashioned or, boring or whatever. I think I look great. And I love the fact that in my sari and the colors I use, I can express myself perfectly well. I'm not saying that everyone should wear saris, but I do think that they should have the confidence to wear clothes which they feel at ease and which reflects their personalities, and not be led by whoever these mysterious fashion gurus are.
Yeah, I think that is a wonderful sort of point to almost sum up what our talk today was about. I think that really buy less, buy more individual, buy more what's suiting you, and then everyone can be
And
at
that's
ease.
a luxury to spend. Why do a lot of people not want to spend too much money on their clothes is because they feel that what's the point, because by next year it will be out of fashion. But if they
Yeah.
feel that it's not out of fashion, it's something that they can keep in their cupboard and wear uh, 10 years later or whatever, it would be an investment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for your last words. We are already at the end of our talk. It was really far too short to hear all your opinions. I think we could continue for a few more hours because it's so interesting and there's so many more topics to discuss. But the idea of talking about quality more than a fashionable item, I think this is definitely right to go this direction. Thank you all for being here, taking your time for our panel. To finish this, I would like to we would like to make a call out for all the designers in the audience who joined today and had a look at our talk, because we were talking a lot now, and handcraft is of course about making, and we would like to call out to designers to send us design ideas, and we would like to choose the most innovative piece, and we'll collaborate with our artisan partners that they are presented on our website. Please check out the website, send us designs, and we will get in touch with you. And we would like to realize a prototype together with you. Our deadline is the 15th of April. And here you can see our emails, Nicole@madein.org, Anjana@madein.org, and we will get in touch with you. The results will be shared within our community, showcased on the website, and sold in an upcoming web shop. So thank you all for joining today.